We're now joined by Matt Babcock of BabcockHoops.com. He does a great job covering the NBA draft. You can find his mock draft there as well as scouting reports on all the players. And Matt, before we start sort of grilling you with questions and putting you under the hot lights here, I just wanted to share a backstory to this interview. You and I have both followed each other on social media for a few years, but I didn't get introduced to you until just a few weeks ago at the NBA Draft Combine. And the reason why I introduced myself is I noticed I kept seeing you in the gym and all over the country. I saw you in Baltimore at the Mellow Classic watching high school games, and then, of course, at the NBA Draft Combine. You're based in Colorado. Why is it important to you to travel the country and the globe? And what do you glean from when you watch these players in person as you try to evaluate them?
No, sure, no. Thanks, Chase. And so my whole approach is, I'm an NBA draft analyst, and the way I operate is I try and do things like an NBA front office would. I kind of put myself in the shoes of the scouting department and kind of use the mock draft and our big board as sort of exercises throughout the year as a way of sort of figuring out where I stand on guys, what question marks remain. And I think a big part of an evaluation process is seeing the guys in person and also crossing paths with different coaches and people in the industry to gather intel. And the way I look at it is with each guy, it's its own unique evaluation and it's a process. And as you mentioned, I cover high school events. And so we start that process sometimes when these guys are 14, 15 years old, and it's a 4 or 5, 8-year process now with some of these guys staying in school so long, NIL, excuse me. And so travel around a lot. And so we look at in-person evaluations, watch a lot of film, we gather intel, we look at analytics. And so now we're, less than a month out from this year's draft, and the process for a lot of these guys is going to end for me.
Well, you mentioned all the information that you pull together. Obviously, NBA front offices have probably way more information than they did even 10 years ago with analytics and the predictive models that they have. Yet, it seems like the NBA draft remains extremely unpredictable. If anything, maybe even more unpredictable. And I have some theories on that. I think, obviously, NIL is leading to guys going into college and then going into the pros at a younger age. But also, they're coming from different leagues around the world, so it just makes it more difficult to compare and contrast them. And one result of that is the number one pick is very rarely the best player in a draft. And lately we've seen a lot of guys who weren't even top 5, top 10 picks, rule the NBA and win MVPs. So my first question to you about this draft class is, obviously you can't predict who would be an MVP who's picked outside of the top 10. If you could, you wouldn't be sitting here with us. But who are some players that stand out to you that would present high ceilings that might not be top 5 or top 10 picks?
That's a great question. I do think the highest upside prospects are in that top 5 or at least top 10. Some guys that are sort of gaining some momentum. A couple international guys that are really young. The international players are able to enter the draft a year earlier than American players. So naturally, you've got a little more upside with guys that just are a year behind. Noah Sengwe is one guy that comes to mind. 18-year-old, very athletic, mobile, stretch 4. Jon Berenger, another guy from France that played in Slovenia this year. Very athletic, just sort of modern day big, as far in the sense of being able to cover a lot of ground defensively and just having this incredible athleticism and motor. But both kids are really young, and so I see those guys that are probably going to be more of your late lottery, mid first round pick type guys. But we fast forward 5 years from now, I do think there's upside there where they could have in a redraft be a top 5 type pick. And honestly, that's a big part of the fun as far as covering the draft and being a scout is even though metrics and advanced metrics has become such a big part of evaluation, I still am a big believer there's a lot of subjectivity as to how you evaluate players and how you build rosters, essentially too. And so, it's a big puzzle, and it's I'm doing my best to sort of juggle the risk-reward ratios with each guy, just as these NBA teams are.
Yeah, Matt, we were talking a couple minutes ago, Chase and I, about this upcoming draft, and there are a few guys who I like and a few guys who he likes at the Wizards spot, specifically at number 6. And I think the consensus around this draft is that the top 2 are set, right? It's going to be Flagg and Harper. And then after that, it's kind of wide open. So I'm going to put you on the spot here. If there are a few guys in that next tier, sort of that tier 2 of prospects, anywhere from 3 to 6, if you were an NBA GM, specifically, let's say the Sixers GM, because they have the number 3 pick, who is your top guy not named Flagg or Harper, and why? And some guys after that who you would like around the 4 to 6 range.
The next guy for me would be VJ Edgecombe. But, keep in mind with Philly, they're at an interesting turning point with their franchise. They've got 2 aging stars that are on huge contracts with Embiid and Paul George, who haven't been healthy. But then your young building blocks are Tyrese Maxey and Jared McCain, both very much guards, and can you add another high-level young guy like VJ Edgecombe? Where's the pathway for him to find success there? And so I am a believer in the best player available, but there still needs to be a pathway for success, and it needs to make sense from a roster construction standpoint. And so, with Philly, is a really interesting pick for me. I've got Ace Bailey going there, which I think is probably the next talent, arguably, he and VJ, but he's very much an upside player. I think there's major question marks with him, his maturity, does he have the well-rounded game enough to maximize his potential, maybe he will, but the questions are looming, and so again, it is very much more of a puzzle with the draft, because if you ask any GM, they will all say, hey, we'll take the best player available. I think in most cases it's a very deflecting answer. Best player for what you're trying to do, but that could mean a lot of different things depending on the team.
Who do you have the Wizards selecting at 6, and who do you think could be on the board that they'll be deciding between?
Yeah, like we're talking about, I think Philly is the wild card pick right now, and I'm expecting there to be a lot of trade chatter behind the scenes. I think there is a lot of trade chatter behind the scenes right now, and I was kind of going through all the teams. I don't know if I've ever seen so much uncertainty with veteran star players as far as if teams are going to commit to building around them moving forward or not. And so, I think there's a potential of this draft to get shaken up a lot. And, we've said this in years past too, and there hasn't been any trades or whatever, but the possibility is there. And so I think Washington is an interesting spot at 6. For one, I'm sure they're disappointed as heck that they moved back in the draft. They're still going to be in a great spot to get a good player. But Philly is an interesting pick. Who goes 3? Because that could create an interesting domino effect in a number of different ways. For me, I've got Jeremiah Fears going there right now. And my initial hesitation is, okay, how much stock are you putting into Bub Carrington as your primary ball handler? And I think there's an argument to be made, especially in the modern NBA. You can play multiple ball handlers, especially since Bub's got great size. And so the idea of Jeremiah Fears and Bub long-term being in the backcourt, let's say 5 years from now, you're able to put a lot of pressure on the rim, and I like that a lot. Another guy, Chase, you and I had talked about this player at the Combine. I do like the fit with Derik Queen. I don't think the Combine helped him a ton. I think the athletic testing was underwhelming. I heard he did just okay in his interviews. I don't think there was any red flag type stuff. But when you're looking at essentially a high lottery pick, everything is dissected with a magnifying glass. And rumblings are that Derik's slipping a touch. But I still would be very interested in him just from a long-term roster construction standpoint. I really love him paired with Sarr long-term. I think they would complement each other's skill sets well. And then you got to see who else is there. If Ace Bailey slips, if Tre Johnson's there, I think these are all guys that could make sense on some level or another.
Quick follow-up on Derik Queen, because the idea of him slipping is kind of funny to think about, because before this college season, I didn't even see him on mock drafts. So he had this meteoric rise where he became a first-round pick, then he became a lottery pick. Now it seems like he could be picked in the top 10. Can you speak to that rise that he's had, and how many players have you seen have this type of overnight sort of transformation as an NBA draft prospect?
Yeah, I think Derik's evaluation process, at least for me, has been interesting. I've watched him for years. He was a highly rated high school player. And I think part of it, he was in the shadow of Cooper Flagg. Played at Montverde Academy, and their team was stacked. It wasn't even just Cooper. They had Asa Newell, they had Liam McNeely, Rob Wright, who's going to BYU. Just very, very good high school team. For me, what I struggle with is, he was very much a big-bodied 5 when in high school, and he kind of lost some of his baby fat, which I think that by itself kind of gave hope of, okay, maybe his weight and his physical frame is, somewhat controllable But I mean, that certainly is a remaining question of, okay, how big of an issue is his body type? Guys that weights fluctuate creates a lot of risk. And then the other thing for me that really moved the needle for him in the right direction is that Maryland, I mean, the offense was built around him, and he was really able to show his versatility as a big man. I kind of went into the season thinking this is maybe on an upside standpoint, Al Jefferson 2.0, who was a great player, but how effective is Al Jefferson in today's game as a sort of slow-footed, low post scorer? I mean, pretty limited to being around the rim. I think Derik showed he could put it on the floor, he could pass, he showed flashes of shooting the ball, and I've really kind of changed my narrative with him is rather than being this low post 5, I think he's a versatile 4-5. I think defensively there's some questions with his lack of athleticism and body type. But offensively, I mean, if it all clicks, he's a guy, like say he gets drafted by the Wizards, I mean, I can see them running their offense through him. And so that's what intrigues me about him. And then you've got, a versatile big man, Alex Sarr, who's able to cover space. He's, shown the flash to be able to shoot threes, obviously rim protection. And so a very, very interesting prospect. And to answer your second part, as far as guys, really change the narrative, it is part of the draft process. I mean, I don't think it happens left and right, but it always seems to be 2 or 3 guys that kind of come out of nowhere and surprise you. And this year, there's been quite a few.
Yeah, Matt, I'm glad you brought up those 2 guys in Queen and Jeremiah Fears, because I've seen a lot of mock drafts, and if I was predicting the way this draft was going to go myself after Flagg and Harper, I think the next 3 in any particular order are going to be Edgecombe, Bailey, and Tre Johnson. Then when the Wizards come in, barring a trade at 6, they have their pick of Fears, Queen, either of the other Duke guys, etc. So with Fears specifically, I know you brought him up, I think the main concerns around him are probably right now his lack of size and his shooting inconsistencies. Now, me and Chase walked past Jeremiah Fears at the Combine, and I turned around and I was like, man, he only has like an inch or 2 on me, so he's not the biggest guy in the world. But with his ability to get downhill and get to the hoop, can that assuage maybe some GM's fears about his lack of size and his lack of shooting consistency from outside?
Pun intended.
Yeah, I mean, he's
there,
definitely not, one of these jumbo-sized point guards, but I mean, I wouldn't consider him small either. I mean, he's 6'3", and he's supposed to be a senior in high school this year. He reclassified up just like Cooper Flagg did. And so I think from a physical standpoint, he's going to be a stud kid. And it's not even just from a physical standpoint. He's tough as heck. I mean, his older brother, Jeremy Fears Jr., is the point guard at Michigan State, who's one of the toughest kids I've ever evaluated. I mean, regardless of how much value you put him as an NBA prospect, he's tough as nails. And so Jeremiah grew up with jump dog type older brother probably beating up on him. I'm not worried about Jeremiah from a toughness standpoint. I think if there are concerns with the lack of size, I think his athleticism, his talent, and just his approach of just being a dog, I think compensate for those things.
Anecdotally, I feel like a lot of professional athletes were the younger brother of, their older brother might have made it to the college level or the NBA, but it's the younger one who ends up being the best for a lot of those same reasons, because they have to play up in age, play up, above their size and all that. We asked you about Derik Queen, and he got a lot of attention around here this year because Maryland was good. People love the Maryland Terrapins in the D.C. area, but it's in a unique year because he wasn't the only first-round draft prospect playing in the region. There's also Thomas Sorber of Georgetown, who had crazy measurements at the Combine. So what do you think of him as a prospect, and do you think he could be an option for the Wizards at 18?
Yeah, I mean, Thomas Sorber had a great year. I knew him a little bit in high school. I can't say I was as far ahead on him from an evaluation standpoint as much as some of the other guys. But I mean, he turned heads quickly at Georgetown, and an interesting evaluation, similar to some of the things I was saying about Derik in the preseason type evaluations, is he is a low post scorer. I mean, he is a big-bodied 5, but he's smooth and he is skilled. And I do think he's got a chance, even though I think the game in the NBA has gone away from a whole lot of like ISOs in the low post and just, hey, get us a bucket. I do think he could find his way of being effective within the flow of the game. And one guy he sort of reminds me of that's had success is Onyeka Okongwu with the Hawks. I see some similarities there. I don't know if Sorber's quite as athletic or bouncy as Okongwu, but similar type sort of approach to the game and skill set, and it's an effective player. So I mean, it's sort of a good sample of the concept of a guy like Sorber could be effective in today's game.
Matt, I want to get into the weeds a little bit about the Duke players not named Cooper Flagg, because with Con Knipple specifically, I've seen just a bonkers range where he can go in these mock drafts. I've seen him go as high as 3. I've seen him go as low as like 14 or something. So I'm curious about what you think about Con Knipple, because obviously his shooting is what puts him on the map. He's also good at attacking the closeout, but does that really translate to the NBA level where he's going to be guarded by a lot more athletic people? And how much of his production do you think was because of the fact that he was playing alongside Cooper Flagg at Duke?
Yeah, I mean, I think he's an interesting case to kind of look at, because I brought up the risk-reward ratio as far as, I mean, when we're looking at these players, and a guy like Con, I think his skill set is so translatable. But then the question is, how much value is there in a guy like him? I think on an upside standpoint, he's probably going to be a very, very good complementary player, which is not a knock on him. But it's like, is there star potential? I don't know. I mean, this is an off-ball shooter. He's really tough. I think he's more athletic than he would look at first glance, and he knows how to play. And so a guy that's a high-level shooter that can be effective without the ball in his hands, also shoot on the move, I think provides value to just about any team. I mean, you kind of plug and play a guy like this and have a confidence level that the kid's going to succeed. And so I think that's where people are juggling. Hey, we're looking at guys that have a lot of upside but have some question marks, or is there a guy like Con who could probably play for us next year and be a guy, valuable piece for the next 10 years? And so I think that's sort of like the juggling act when you're looking at Con. I think that's what's made him somewhat polarizing, or at least have sort of a perceived wide range. But yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised to see him go anywhere. I mean, as you mentioned, I'm hearing all the same things as far as, is he considered a 3, or is he more of a guy that slips the 10 or so? And I don't know. The draft does feel a little bit unpredictable at this point, in large part because of guys like Con.
And then with the other Duke guy, Matt Kaman Malawach, obviously a defensive stud, great measurements. I think he's the biggest player in the draft coming up. What are your thoughts on him, and how high do you think he could go?
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like his stock is on the rise as well. I mean, he's been mentioned as high as 3. I mean, I think he's an interesting one because pretty much the opposite of Con. I don't think you can plug and play him everywhere else like Con. I mean, Con's sort of just like this off-ball 2-3, kind of can coexist with everybody. I mean, Kaman is a 7-foot, defensive anchor, and I think he's got a little bit of upside on the offensive end. I mean, he's shown flashes to be able to shoot the ball a little bit, but I mean, he falls into being a little bit more of a traditional rim protecting 5. So for example, if you're Washington, does he make sense with Sarr? And I don't think so personally. And so like that to me, going back to the idea of like there needs to be some kind of value for there being a pathway for a kid to have success. And I think Malawach could go as high as 3, or he might slip back past some picks, even if teams like him, just because does he fit with what they're trying to do long term?
The Wizards are in a good spot in the sense that they have the 6th pick and the 18th pick, 2 spots in the top 18, but it also kind of puts them in an interesting position where there's 12 picks separating the 2 spots that they are going to have. And that means that they're probably going to have to look at some players and think, well, if we want them, do we have to take them at 6, or could they possibly fall to 18? Malawach is one guy who comes to mind in that regard. Is there any chance he falls to 18? And another player I have the same question for is Igor Demin. Malawach and Demin, if the Wizards want those guys, do they have to take them at 6?
Malawach, I'd be very surprised if he slipped that far. I mean, Demin, the same thing. I think Demin's got probably a better chance of slipping there. I do think if I were to bet on it today, that both will be lottery picks. But I think, from a approach standpoint, I mean, the Wizards are looking, and this is not insider information, it's just me kind of connecting the dots from the outside looking on in. But they're, from a roster construction standpoint, getting guys that complement what they already have, that can kind of fit this new timeline with this young core. And so, I mean, whoever you're going to get at 6, if you're keeping these picks, if you're not moving around, is who you take at 6 will, naturally probably change what you're looking at 18. And so I don't see, them taking two bigs with both picks or 2 point guards. And so, see who's there at 6, and then just kind of got to think on your feet there.
Yeah, one guy who we mentioned towards the beginning of this call, Matt, was Tre Johnson. And Chase knows I've been ringing the bell for Tre Johnson for months now. He's one of my favorite players in the class. He's an elite scorer. To be honest, I don't think he falls to 6 out of all those guys in that tier 2 players who we mentioned. What are your thoughts on Tre Johnson? Is there any chance the Wizards could get him at 6, or is he a lock to go 3, 4, 5?
I do think there's a very good chance he could be there at 6. I think the pick. I mean, again, if the order stays as is, which is a huge question mark, but I think Utah at 5. That's where I have him going right now. But I mean, I think all of this could be very fluid. And he's a guy similar to what I was saying with Concanupal. I mean, a guy that can really shoot the ball. I mean, I think he's effective, more so than Con as far as being able to create his own offense. But at the same time, I mean, he's an effective shooter, scorer, and a guy like that can coexist with a lot of players. And so, I mean, yeah, if he's there at 6, I mean, he needs to be a strong option for them.
Great information, Matt. We appreciate you doing this. Once again, it's Matt Babcock of BabcockHoops.com. Great information from you, and I'm sure I'll see you soon in a gym somewhere around the U.S.
No, it's been great, guys. Yeah, let me know if you ever want me to come back on.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Matt.
Take care.